We just had Chisa together with us here, and we talked a little bit about her past and how she got to this unicorn role that apparently you can get hired for. So right now we are with Ethan here. He managed to get to Timisoara and overcome all the delays and all the fake taxis in our airport. So, so now he is finally here, and we can have a chat here at this late hour. Thanks everybody. Thanks everyone that's still with us, and for those who will watch on YouTube. Hi YouTube. So
Yeah.
Andrei,
Thank you,
take it.
Ethan. First of all, thank you so much for traveling all the way here, and for being with us at Prow, which is super important because with Prow we wanna somehow contribute to this shift of mindset within the region, to the shift of perspectives, and we wanted to definitely bring this exotic with the quotation marks, of course, and somehow see a perspective when it comes to Web3, and I'm just gonna barge in with this, and how did you land in Web3 world, and how do you see, because I know that you have a different perspective of on Web3 when it comes to whatever we see on the internet or on the walls or everything, and how did you end up in this world?
Yeah, it's true. I think so. Most of the time, I come to general tech conferences to talk about Web3 because I think sometimes my opinions aren't always valued at the crypto conferences because some of it's just crap, and so not all of it is obviously, but it. The reality is that Web3, which we'll get into and define that, is not really about crypto, and it's not about monkey JPEGs. It's not about any of the stuff you might have seen or think that is, and we'll talk about what that actually means. It's just another it's just another innovation in technology that's creating tools that people are going to be using to solve problems. And so when you order something on Amazon and it comes, you don't think about how the website works, how the payments work, how the logistics work. You don't have to understand any of that tech. When you use any of your apps on your phone, you don't have to understand how they work. And Web3 is still in that phase where you kind of have to understand it, but we're going to get past that. And we already are, with a lot of examples that I'll mention during the keynote at the conference and things, where we're starting to get to the point where we're getting the benefit, the solutions that Web3 can bring to specific problems without having to even call them Web3 or think about that. And I have that perspective, I think, because I didn't come to crypto and Web3 from where I think a lot of the people in it may have come from in terms of their interests in different things. I came to it just because I was managing a venture capital fund in Hong Kong, Singapore area, where we built lots of accelerators for large corporates, and primarily in Singapore. And a lot of those conversations that I had to help navigate with these companies, the DBS Bank, OCBC Bank, AA Insurance, were some of the accelerators that the fund created and worked with. And a lot of those conversations were about things like the unbanked, so people who make too little to have a bank account, which can be, at that point was 75% of Southeast Asia. Still a huge problem around the world, Southeast Asia, but Central South America, Africa, India, and the cross-border remittance issue of people within Southeast Asia that maybe work in Hong Kong or Singapore and make money and send it home on the weekend, and they're standing in line for hours to send money and pay 50% of it in a commission, like just craziness. Those two problems were actually things that crypto and the blockchain are able to do interesting things around. So that kind of pushed me into it in 2015, where I had to kind of get in this space. But I was doing it from my background of just entrepreneurship and startups, and then the venture capital thing, where it wasn't so much about crypto. I'm anti-establishment, or I'm libertarian, or any of the maybe the things that kind of brought people to some of the ethos of crypto that has existed in the past or whatever. For me, it was very much just, here's another technology that's going to solve problems, and so that's my space. in it. And so what I talk a lot about is Web3 as really the future of marketing for brands and products and all this idea around community engagement. And there's just tons of really fun things we can talk about that. And it really has nothing to do with what people might think Web3 is in terms of crypto and other subjects. And it's just a technology that solves some specific problems.
um, there's an app in Asia where you pre-fill it with money, and then people with scooters walk around as mobile ATMs and give you the money in cash. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. So
don't know that one,
that's
but-
that's an example of solving a problem of not having. So the problem was that they have like 5 ATMs in the city or something like that.
Yeah.
And you have digital money. How do you get it cash? And they solved it with building a digital product. But with the fact that they have a lot of people on scooters, then they can just drive around and have the mobile ATM. So yeah, it's
In those economies, it's really interesting to see how some of this, at that point in time, back in 2015, 16, and you were looking at, for example, one of the startups that we accelerated was called Coins.ph, a Philippines company, which has now become a huge crypto exchange in the region. But their initial thing was they basically made digital wallets that you could go into any 7-Eleven or Circle K. There's like 20,000 of them in Southeast Asia. It's basically the little corner store that people buy lots of their daily stuff around. And if they're making a couple dollars a day doing whatever activity it is they're doing for work, that's where they might come in to buy groceries or to buy the things they need, maybe to pay for their cell phone, because they don't have a bank account, and so they're using cash. And so the idea was you could take your coins or your cash into one of these little stores, put it onto your wallet, which was not a blockchain-based wallet at that point, although that really became kind of the idea. So yeah, there's these really fun things where you have, just hundreds and hundreds of millions of people who in those regions and billions. And when we look at the world in terms of the unbanked, there's still, I think, around 2 billion people in the world that would be considered unbanked because they just make a couple dollars a day or whatever on the local economy that translates to. They can live on that. They can actually have a phone. They can buy things online. It seems weird to think that when we live in the West, no matter where we live and what country and what economy we're in, there are people who live with a lot less, but they still access actually the amount of cell phone use in these areas is sometimes near 100%. Like, it's crazy how many people have maybe not an iPhone, but they have an older phone that does that allows them to do certain things, and all of that on a economic side of things is super important. And so yeah, things like that exist. This idea of helping people manage in a digital way that money that they do make every day. Gojek, which is basically like Uber for the region, is another example of things like that, where just people basically, there's an economy around driving or providing services in this app, and the next thing you know, it became a wallet because you make money and spend money in the app. And then the next thing you know, it becomes the largest bank in Indonesia by getting a banking license, because everybody's already using it to either take a motorcycle somewhere or to have their groceries delivered or their prescriptions delivered, or somebody comes and gives you a massage at the apartment. It's an amazing economy, and it all evolves around these apps.
Like WeChat, right, in China?
It's a lot like WeChat, where it's in that it's not the same concept, where WeChat really is just the whole internet in an app in the mainland. But yeah, it's a really fun thing. So there's all kinds of those examples where we've seen in finance where people were needing access to different tools and different ways to look at things. So crypto and blockchain can be a part of solving a lot of those things. And Web3 is kind of now an evolution of that by applying some of that underlying technology to lots of other problems.
that's
Nice.
Yeah, my mind was going to a lot of other super apps that have this kind of a concept when you said about WeChat, Raul. But let's let's take it. Okay, so it's a big and hot topic right now. But let's take it 10 years forward. How if you put your vision goggles 10 years from now, how that, because we have trends. We have people discussing about, I don't know, AI, and where the question, where's it all gonna be headed to? And if you'd be to put the vision goggles on Web3 and say, okay, Web3 from 10 years from now, how do you see that?
So the way that I think it's interesting, and again, Web3 is this, if we want to define it, it's the Web2 that we know, which is the internet that is interactive, where we can put videos on YouTube like this, or we can start a blog, or we can leave comments on a website, or we can post photos on Instagram, or create a podcast, or all these ways where we create the internet, but it goes through intermediaries. The video has to go to YouTube, and people have to go to YouTube to watch it. So YouTube owns those relationships, and so all the apps that we use have that still top-down approach. That's the Web 2 thing. Web 3 is just taking that and making it a bit more decentralized, where we're going to create the relationship between content creators and brands and their fans or customers, and it's going to be connected to a digital asset or collectible or something in some way. Well, if we move fast, I don't even think it'll take 10 years, but if we bounce forward, the way that I think it gets really interesting is, depending on your age, you use either your email address or your mobile phone number to connect to all of your apps and all of the things that you use. You sign into websites. Think of it kind of like, now that you have a Gmail account or a Facebook account or whatever, you actually use those accounts maybe to connect to other services that
Correct.
you use or other websites. So single sign-on using this other thing that you already have, like your Gmail account. Well, depending on your demographic, because if you're Gen Z, Gen Alpha, then you more likely want to use your mobile phone number than you do an email. And if you're my age, you probably prefer your email address instead of your mobile number. But it doesn't really matter. But that's what we use as our identifier. I'm going to leave here. I'm going to go check into my hotel, and they're going to ask me on the little piece of paper what my phone number is and what my email address is. We identify ourselves. That's the point of contact. It's that touch point. So moving forward with Web3, what we're going to see is that people's digital wallet addresses, their digital wallets, are going to be one of their identifiers, maybe the identifier in a lot of ways. But in the same way, if you pull out your wallet and inside of it you have an ID, you have your driver's license, you have money, whether it's cash or your credit cards, you have maybe some collectibles like pictures of your family or your dog or whatever that might be. You've got maybe that loyalty card for the restaurant that you always order a salad from every Tuesday or something like that. Like, you have all this stuff that's in your physical wallet that identifies you, that you connect to. Your digital wallets, in the sense of with Web3, are going to be the exact same thing, where inside of that app, you're going to have everything around your identity, in terms of digital identity. You're going to have all the collectible stuff that you might have, whether it's pictures, whether it's art that you've collected, whether it is, maybe you play video games like Fortnite, or you do stuff in metaverses, and you have all those things that you collect or that you've purchased or that you like. All that digital stuff that we have is going to maybe be in there. Rewards and loyalty programs. We have Lufthansa, Etihad, and Air Baltic, that all three are now running their loyalty programs on NFTs in different ways. We have Starbucks, that is also now in the U.S. Beta testing its new program, which runs completely on NFTs. They call them journey stamps or something else to maybe not get into the tech and get away from that. But the idea is we're creating all these things there. Video games, all those in-game assets that you earn or buy or win when you play Fortnite or Pokemon Go or Roblox stuff or whatever those things are that you do. The music industry is going to be a huge one in this. All these different spaces that we can look at and talk about those are going to be things that you're going to keep in your digital wallet or digital wallets, in the same way that you already keep most of that stuff in your physical wallet. So fast forwarding a couple years, that's it. That's where this stuff gets interesting, because we are going to have a digital version of most of that stuff in our life, and it has to go somewhere, and that somewhere is the digital wallet. And that is at the core of what Web3 is, because all those things in that wallet are directly tying you to that brand or that service or that content or that asset that you're connected to in some way. And so it becomes that wallet full of things that give you a one-to-one relationship with all of these brands or services.
But if we look in the past, like 1-2 years. People associate Web3 with a lot of, like you said, like crypto, the NFTs, the digital wallets, and everything around that area. So lately, let's say there was a lot of negative press, right? With crypto exchanges blowing up, NFTs scams all over the place, a lot of people losing money. I mean, this whole area, right, got a dark cloud over it. So I'm curious, do you see this as being a natural way of evolving a new era, right? Or is it something that basically put you back a few years and now you need to regain the trust? Or is it something that you said, yeah, that's like a sinus, right? And you go up, the bubble bursts, and then it becomes commodity? Or you say, no, it was really bad what happened. Right now we need to earn our trust of 2 years of trust back, right?
Yeah, it is. So the thing is, Web3 is powered by the blockchain. It's powered by tokenization. That's the technologies that make the things I just mentioned as examples functional and possible. And we have the blockchain because that's what enabled us to have cryptocurrencies, to be able to have monetary systems based on tech, because you need a system that basically is foolproof and unhackable, in the sense that if I give you 20 euros, you know you have 20 euros because I just handed you the 20 euros. But if I send you a Bitcoin, we need a system that makes sure that as soon as I give it to you, I no longer have it, so I can't give it to someone else. But as soon as you get it, it's now yours. So the blockchain creates this through stuff we don't have to get into on the tech side. But basically, it just creates this system that we can have 100% trust in, based on the cryptography and what we call immutability, which is the unchangeableness of a blockchain's data, so that we can trust to build a monetary system on it. Well, we're going to use that same technology to create all the examples that I mentioned. And so, yes, Web3 is powered by tokenization and the blockchain, but it's not really about crypto. So that's the first thing. So all the crap that's happened with crypto, whether it's exchanges or things like that, has nothing to do with Web3 in the reality. In fact, none of the problems that happened in crypto had anything to do with crypto. The exchanges didn't fail, or all the fraud or anything happened. None of that is a crypto problem. It's all a human problem. This is just people ripping people off using a new system. And that's actually not a technical problem with crypto. That's just people abusing a new system in order to be able to make money. And so there's actually nothing that happened in any of that was an inherent problem with what crypto is. But we don't have to have that conversation, because Web3 has nothing to do with crypto, beyond the fact that the blockchain is what makes this all work. The same thing is true if we want to look at NFTs, and if we talk about Bored Apes or any of those kind of larger things in the space, or we talk about all the other projects that people created that either just didn't work, or were fraudulent, or were not fraudulent but just didn't scale well, or that have now lost their value, whatever all those versions are. That is a very specific area of digital collectibles that is no different than buying Beanie Babies or Pokemon cards or Magic the Gathering cards, and those are still worth something. But how many other thousands of those collectibles are worth crap now? Well, it's no different in the sense of people built collectibles in these collections of NFTs. We call those PFPs, profile pictures, because it's people usually identify with the community. And that's not really any different than just traditional collectibles, in the sense that some projects work and some don't. There was a lot more fraud and a lot more manipulation, because the money was faster and easier, and people kind of jumped into that. But again, not a fundamental flaw in the technologies, but just something that people leveraged against it. And again, none of that has anything to do with the Web3 examples that I mentioned. So to really fast forward a little bit and to answer that question all at the same time, is most of those NFTs aren't worth anything. So we don't have the issues of speculation on the value, the fraud side, or whatever. Your loyalty card for your airline isn't worth anything. I mean, yes, it's got miles in it, if that's that account. So yes, there's some worth to it, but we're not talking about something that is speculative in that sense, like we see with certain NFT projects or with crypto. The things, if your ticket, an NFT ticket to the Ed Sheeran concert or whatever, yes, it has a certain value, but that asset is, it's not going to be any different than if somebody steals your wallet today. You're going to have to, get a new ID. You're going to have to get your credit cards reissued. You've got a bunch of stuff you might lose in there, like the photo of your dog or your kids or whatever that is, and then, you've got 8 stamps out of 10 to get another salad, and so you just lost just lost a salad. So yes, I mean that stuff is worth something, but it's not necessarily worth anything. Well, your digital wallets will be similar, meaning if you're not investing in investable assets in terms of, like, you can collect art that has been tokenized. You can, all kinds of things in fashion and luxury have digital twins to prove the authenticity of the item, that that bag that you own or that watch that you own or whatever is real and it's yours. All these kind of things that exist. Yes, there might be some value, but for most everyday people, it's not that. It's just going to be their wallet, like their regular wallet. And yes, it's going to have value in it, but it's not going to be. This is not the conversation about people making fortunes or not on crypto. This is not the conversation about people getting abused because they bought a llama picture from somebody on Twitter, and it turns out that that's not worth anything anymore. There are valid reasons why those two things are interesting, but it's not a Web3 conversation. So we can talk about all those, just the crap fest that crypto and NFTs have been through the past couple years. The reality is that has nothing to do with most of Web3, because most of the things I mentioned in examples they're not actually worth anything. They're just a technology that's making something happen. That NFT isn't necessarily, maybe it has some value or not. But the reality is, if you issue the tickets to Pro with an NFT ticketing platform, it's for the utility that brings to ticketing, which is a hugely interesting topic. Not because all of a sudden people can trade those and it's going to become the next, thing people put on Twitter that, here's my ticket of the, it's a wholly different world.
It's definitely going to be. I mean, for Prow, sure.
It should be.
You buy the ticket for Prow 2030, and then when it arrives, you sell it to 10 times.
100 times more.
100 times more. Right? Yeah.
So
basically, use the technology. It's about the technology and how you use the technology. It's up to them, basically, how they
Lots
use
of people are going to find new ways to rip people off, but that's all kinds of new technologies. I still get a couple of texts a week on my phone asking me to sign into my bank account, or oh, you have a package from the post that you need to pay $2 to get it, redelivered. Like, we already have all this kind of stuff that people just figure out new ways to try and rip people off and get access to things. Obviously, Web3 and everything behind it with crypto and NFTs, there will continue to be stories and things that happen, but those really are not necessarily fair or are being overblown in a lot of ways. Even though those are huge issues. And I mean, we're talking about billions of dollars with some of these exchanges and things like that, but we can also look at the stock market and other things that's also sucked up billions of dollars of people's money because people screwed up their company and there was fraud or whatever. So I think there's a lot there that we can have a very fair and harsh conversation about crypto and NFTs and Web3. But I think we have to also apply that conversation to the rest of tech and the rest of our financial world as well, if we want to really be fair about it.
True. And except, let's say, the digital wallet, how you described it, like how the future would look like, what else would be, or what other implications do you see of Web 3.0 in our day-to-day lives?
Yeah, so there's lots of interesting things. So NFT ticketing is something people may have already used and don't realize it, because it can just be a regular ticket. Like, if you sign up on Eventbrite to go to an event and you get a QR code to check into the event, well, Eventbrite's not turning those into NFTs yet, but there are plenty of platforms that now do that for lots of different reasons. One of the reasons might be, if Ed Sheeran, for his concert series in London and Paris in the arenas, the only way in was to show the QR code in the app, and it turns out that QR code was an NFT, because by your ticket having been issued as an NFT, you can do one of several things. You could block the resale of the ticket. You don't want to do that. Sometimes people need to resell tickets, but maybe you can make it so that if they want to resell the ticket, they can only sell it for the same price they bought it for. or with maybe a little bit like 10% or 20% above max or whatever. Or maybe it's you can sell it for more, but all the extra money goes back to the artist. Like, and the whole point of what this does is it destroys ticket scalping, because upwards of 90% of tickets to shows like Taylor Swift or Ed Sheeran or these big acts, especially the big tours and things like that, upwards of 90% of those tickets are purchased by automated bots and resold.
Via GoGo.
Yeah.
That's the Ticketmaster, one of the big scandals, right? With Ticketmaster.
But so Ticketmaster is a great one of something people will see. So everybody wanted to get Taylor Swift tickets, and they got screwed out of it because all these people, all the bots and others got in there too fast. Well, Ticketmaster has already rolled out a couple months ago first in line ticketing. So if you have a Taylor Swift NFT that you have because you've purchased a song, or that you got because it's a previous ticket that you had to a concert, or some digital asset that you have acquired or been given because you're a true fan. Well, you can sign into Ticketmaster now. It's in beta, but you can sign in for the tours that are doing it and working with it. If you have one of those NFTs that correspond to the artist that they've it's called token gating, that you use that NFT to open up some kind of opportunity or value. If you have that NFT in your wallet, you're first in line tickets, which means that you're ahead of the bots. Because the only body who can get tickets is a fan who has the NFT. And that's going to create a huge new, this is going to be an arms race, obviously, in terms of, people trying to figure this out and whatever. But the point is, if you're looking for practical examples of cool things that are coming, that's already here. And it's just going to scale up and get done even better. And that's a problem that millions and millions and millions of people had, where they wanted tickets to a show, and two things happened. They either couldn't get them. We fixed that with first in line ticketing, at least for the fans, the true fans. And the second is, for the Ed Sheeran concert, the tickets were between 60 and 90 euros, and they resold for 300. None of the money goes back to Ed, and you spend all the extra.
Ticket swap lets you only swap tickets with the amount that you.
And we've tried to find Web 2 versions of this, and some of them have worked and some of them does it, and people will figure out ways to hack this a little bit as well. But the point is making it harder and harder, so that we kind of break that. So that's a perfect example of a way in everyday life that if people go see concerts, they're going to start to see, whether they know their NFTs or not, their tickets are going to behave differently.
But one important thing is, because if we talk like about ticketing, right? I believe there is still a disconnect with a lot of people, and with me as well. Don't get it wrong. So I mean, when we talk about the technology, right, and even at a beer, right, the glass of wine. And then all these things make sense. But at the end of the day, for example, for your QR code, being it an NFT, you will still be able to do a screenshot, send it, and then that person under your name or whatever, because nobody will check like QR with an ID or something, will get into that concert. You will still be able to buy them, screenshot them, and then resell it and send a Revolut payment, right? Or a Monzo payment or whatever. I mean, there will still be a lot of situations where you bypass the technology, even though the technology itself is foolproof with blockchain, for example, right? Because it's...
So I'll take that from the end and move back towards the beginning, because what you ended with was correct, that there will be ways to play with this or mess it up. But the first part I actually will disagree with, because all of the NFT ticketing apps that are out there that work use dynamic QR codes, which means they're constantly changing and they only work once, which means you can't screenshot them. They're like proof of attendance, if you've heard of POAP NFTs, but basically an NFT you scan because you're at a physical location. And so when you pull out that QR code on your wallet for any of the NFT ticketing apps, the QR code is actually changing every 5, 10, 15 seconds. Screenshots don't work. And actually, it also, even if you did two people scan one of those at the same time, only one of them is going to work, because the system and the blockchain is going. It's
for sure.
Yeah. So it's not to get into the details exactly, but actually that piece is dealt with. But this, people will figure out how to try to play with this. And again, I would never want to say that Web3 is the solution for everything in terms of technology problems or whatever. That's just stupid. The blockchain doesn't fix everything. No technology does. The point is simply is this fixes the things it fixes. That's all. Mm-hmm. And will people try and find other ways around or ways to maybe hack this, or not hack it, because that's not true, but to at least maybe social engineer it or play with it in ways. But the reality is the technologies are extremely robust and more or less on the blockchain side are unhackable. And so the I agree with the premise that obviously people will try and figure out ways around these things and play with them. But the point is that we're able to do very interesting things now that we couldn't do without tokenization and the blockchain, and that makes this much harder of a system to game.
For them
I'm super happy that we somehow turned into all of this Web3 discussion into a product discussion. I mean, we're focusing a lot on ways in which we, with the use of technology, we can solve real world problems. And actually, this is actually one of the main focuses of the conference or at Prow. I mean, we want to make sure that at the end of the day we bring value. Yes, we use technology in order to do that, and we use various technologies. We've got Web3, we've got somebody talking about AI, we've got somebody talking about all sorts of frameworks out there. But at the end of the day, it's super important to solve a real problem for somebody from somewhere around the world.
Mm.
And that's definitely the reason why while you're here with us. And to somehow take it to what you're gonna share with us at Proud, but not sharing it right now, so that we still have people have a reason to come on Friday. Uh, what's gonna be your keynote on, or how what are you focusing on, so that we even make it more appealing for everybody who's watching to make sure that they get to join us on Friday.
So it's basically part of the conversation we've had, but just tons of examples across all those ideas. So digital identity being our new form of identity connected to these things is a root of that. And then we can look at all the things around how brands especially, but we can take that and look at it from a product perspective. We can also make it about the creator economy. Basically, whenever you're here and you're creating content or a product or a thing, and you have customers or fans or clients over here, the reality is this is going to allow us to have a very different engagement model and market. So the talk is basically Web3 is the future of marketing for brands and products in this sense. And that's this foundational idea of digital identity evolving into wallets, but it doesn't mean you have to understand what wallets is. Like a wallet could still potentially just be your email address. We have plenty of wallets now that people just don't know that it's, like one of the big museums in Paris just did a thing last week where you could basically buy a digital collectible from them. And all you could only buy it by using your email address on the website and your credit card. It wasn't even about crypto, but it's an NFT, and it provides some of the benefits there. So digital wallets don't necessarily have to be confusing things like MetaMask or these other things if people have played with them and are like, ooh, that's a little complicated and too much. There are varying degrees of how we get into this. Actually, Web3 is the future version of this. What we're basically talking about right now is Web 2.5. It's the platforms that we have that are engaging with Web3 technologies to the extent that they can, because we're early. The technologies are still being invented or created in many ways, or just being deployed at this point. So it's that, and then the discussion basically goes through. I forget how many pages I sent you, but I think there's almost 100 slides in that thing. There's no way I'll get through them all. But it's basically just a lot of examples. Like, it's not me speaking about every slide, but it's just simple things of looking at how brands are doing everything around digital collectibles. Nike has done over $1.5 billion, almost $2 billion worth of sales and secondary market activity for purely digital collectibles in the last 2 years. Not physical shoes, just digital shoes and collectibles.
So pictures of shoes.
Yes. So, and we can unwrap that, but the point is that brands are figuring out that, especially with Gen Z and Gen Alpha, there are, we collect all kinds of things. So digital collectibles is a huge conversation, but then there's digital art. So just the art world, but transformed into a digital space. And then everything I mentioned around rewards and loyalty. The supply chain and logistics, there's a thing coming in 2026 called digital product passports in Europe that will basically, it's a blockchain solution where you can know the entire ESG, so sustainability history of a product that you buy and it's a regulatory obligation. It will be that you can track all of that environmental, social governance impact around ESG through this digital product passport, where every single physical thing, your iPhone, this microphone, this table, eventually they'll all be able to be traceable through these technologies, and we can track all those things. That's a huge conversation for supply chain and logistics. The music industry is going to be the big one in the next year and a half, where tons of things are happening. Super interesting space there. Everything in video games. The metaverse, we're a little early. It's mostly looks like really crappy Minecraft stuff and things like that nobody's using.
True.
Which can actually be really fun if you like it, but it's not to the point of everybody really caring. But the Apple Vision Pro that they came out with, the goggles, and the way Apple tends to create ecosystems and drive customers to a new technology, and then it democratizes out to Samsung, LG, Xiaomi, whatever. That's coming in a big way towards what the metaverse will be, to the point where in 10 years, I can be walking down the streets of Paris and these glasses I'm wearing will have overlays in them where I can see what the special is at that restaurant, their rating on, whatever website, whether or not that apartment is for rent, my Google Maps or City Mapper stuff. It's all going to be inlaid because that technology is going to start moving faster and faster, and the content is going to become much more interesting. Of where the metaverse, if metaverse is defined as the merging of our physical and digital experiences, all this stuff's going to really get really cool. So there's just tons of things we can look at that are going to be fun. That's what I'll talk about
Audi has
quickly in 35 minutes, really fast. No, but just it's mostly examples. I'm basically just showing slide after slide after slide of this exists and you didn't know it. Lufthansa's program that now is NFTs, or like showing how these things work and explaining them, just so that people come away from it going, I thought it was garbage, and it's actually probably the future of how marketing, or at least the way that we engage with potential with our customers or our fans. But then how we just solve so many problems that exist in the relationship in terms of marketing, between brands and their customers, content creators and their fans. We're just solving lots of cool things in that. So it's basically, the keynote is to be an eye-opener of, wow, that stuff really already exists, and it's just going to get better from here.
Yeah.
So you should come.
Yeah, for sure. What I wanted to say is, obviously, for sure you know it, right? But to say that the glasses, you get like Google Maps direction, Audi has it in their new lineup of like cars. You see in the dashboard exactly the street, and then the arrow and the guidance is like as kind of a augmented reality to do that. So it's
the technologies exist. The issue is, if you've seen an Oculus or whatever Meta calls them, the Quests, I think now, or any of these goggles, HoloLens, things like that, they're kind of clunky. The technology works, but it needs to move forward faster. There needs to be a lot more money and a lot more drive, but more importantly, the apps need to get there. So the reason I bring that up is just with Apple launching the Vision Pro, and my idea, the way that when we look at, when these things came out a few years ago, people mocked the Apple Watch, and we're like, okay, that's just stupid. Now it's 50% of the luxury watch market is Apple Watches. And it created a whole app diagram of a whole new world paradigm of this thing that we carry in our pocket that has replaced so many of our devices, and people mocked the iPhone when it came out, like, that doesn't make any sense. And it was kind of stupid for a year. And then all the apps showed up, and then all the apps got better. So when I bring up the idea of my glasses having that, that's jumping way forward. But the point is that now that Apple has placed itself into spatial computing, which is what they're calling this extended reality idea of AR, VR, goggle stuff and all that, the technology is going to move forward at a dramatically increased pace for miniaturization and quality of image. And the app developers are going to get involved, because one thing Apple always does when it releases things like phones, watches, tablets, whatever, is it brings its app developers in and says, how do we make amazing stuff to turn this thing into a thing? Because it's the apps that make the money, in the sense that the hardware makes a ton of money, but the hardware sells because the apps become so good that you have to have the hardware. It's not just about Apple. It's this is how everything works with Android as well with the others, but Apple is the one that has been able to, or maybe not. But I'm trying to avoid all the hate comments.
You need to pick sides.
I'm waiting on the Apple fanboy hate comments, but this isn't really about that.
No,
this
but
is just
it's
they're
true.
really good at making customers finding that thing.
It's true because spec-wise, right, hardware-wise, Samsung has better phones, right? But most of the apps that you find are shitty.
Yeah, but
That's the reality.
It's
Apps do a lot.
Or the experience between apps is different in a way that it's just not. But again, this is the Apple Android conversation. We don't have to go down that road. But Mac and PCs, we don't have nearly enough time for that. Or maybe alcohol is probably the bigger issue. My point simply is that the metaverse stuff for me was really at a dead point in certain ways because there's just not enough people. I mean, Roblox has a ton of use. The sandbox is really cool. There's amazing stuff out there, but in order for that to explode and become big, there's a huge difference between when you look at one of those metaverse platforms and you go play the new Grand Theft Auto. The quality of what these video game engines can do in these games is incredible. When that comes to metaverses, but there's a problem. You have to create that for all the people in real time in parallel. So it's a computational issue. But once we get there, the reality is a whole lot more people will want to use that because it's either almost lifelike or really even lifelike in that sense. But it will actually all come down to the apps.
Yeah.
But then the apps need better hardware so that so it's that chicken egg thing. But my point is that I think we're now in a place where we can see with some of these with Apple, for example, but with others, that both those sides of that equation are going to start getting better very quick. You can actually already see the little things that Apple does. The new watches that they just came out with. So not this one, but the new one they just announced. So the Vision Pro has a few cameras on the outside, so that whenever you're looking at stuff, you're able to actually use your hands, and so it's watching your hands. So you're able to do things like double click by doing this. The new Apple Watch does the same thing. Like if I get an alert on my watch, I can do this, and I just
Not
close
right now.
The new watch. Yes.
The Ultra 2? Or
The brand new, the new Apple Watch that just came out.
Yes.
So the apps can now do this.
Not right. This is the new Apple Watch, and they cannot. No, I have a cover to make it black.
Okay, so
but that's
gotcha.
the Ultra 2, and it's not released.
It's
right
not
now.
released yet.
It's not released.
So
we are
I'm a
waiting
little
for
too
the
early.
update.
For the app.
For the app. Right. The hardware is
again,
there.
So that's
but
actually it.
Exactly.
But that's
And
my
we are waiting.
point is that something that's way down the line in terms of spatial computing and those goggles becoming miniaturized and better quality and all that kind of stuff is interesting. But the reality is those technologies are already starting to find their way into some of others' Apple products, and that's their secret sauce of making all that work. You can do the same thing. I can be using my laptop, and if I put the goggles on, I can look up and I could actually have my apps all in front of me. Or watch a film that's all, that's basically IMAX, or be able to move my calendar around, or just all these kind of things that may seem kind of silly because it hasn't worked well yet. But it also seems kind of silly that we spend our days looking at this thing and playing with it, and we've been taught behaviors in terms of how we interact with this information and how we do things. And so we will create a whole new suite of behaviors and interaction around spatial computing. And that's going to change. We got a little off track, but the whole point of that was that the metaverse conversation is going to go from being to being, oh, okay, because this physical and digital blending is going to get really interesting of our lives because we already do it. We already have avatars in Messenger that we can define to look like us, or what we think we look like.
Correct.
Or in Instagram, we take photos, but we have to put a filter because the real life wasn't good enough. Or we have all this stuff where we already blend our digital and physical. Give us more tools, give us more apps, and people will just do more of that. And that's where that's going. And Web3 is a part of how that will work as well underneath.
Do you see Web3 because
I'd love to see comments if there's people watching leaving comments, because I'm sure there's people like, what the hell is he saying?
No, I believe it is important. When we have these conversations, there are people that truly understand what you're talking about, or they already have touched it in a way or another. There are people that associate what I tried to rule out at the beginning, like Web 3.0 being crypto, being NFTs, everything is a huge scam. But what we need also to tell the people that are watching and the people that will watch on YouTube is that we here talk about the technology, right? And there are certain things that were done also with the database, right? You can regenerate the QR code with having a simple MySQL database and then doing it in a normal platform. You can do a lot of our monitor just died, and I don't know if we are still online, but we will continue.
Alive, right?
We are still alive,
Perfect.
right? Okay, so but it's fine. So
Well, the three of us were watching the screen, so there's at least three people watching, but we need the screen's off. So
there are certain technologies right now that do the same or can do the same thing. What we are talking about when talking about blockchain, for example, is this idea of decentralized versus centralized, meaning creating a higher trust level in the technology. Not necessarily that it changes the world, that you can do things, groundbreaking new things, but it's more than that. Using a blockchain instead of a database, having a decentralized source of truth instead of having a centralized source of truth, brings more to the table, increases the trust in the data that is there, right? There is no one point of failure. So these are the things that we need to make sure that people understand when we talk about 3.0. But
all the things that all the examples I gave, we can currently do those with Web 2 technologies.
But less security, with less confidence, with that's all.
It's just an evolution. It's just tech being able to do something either a little bit better or a whole lot better than it was able to before.
You're taking my next question.
Sorry.
So, no, perfect. Do you see, because a lot of advocates, right, of Web3 say it's the next thing. The
next big thing.
The next big thing, right? It will change the world, right? Now it's the moment where everything will be different. So how do you see it? Is it an incremental change? Like, is it an evolutionary thing, or is it a groundbreaking thing? Is it something that naturally evolved to be like this and go down this path? Or is it something that now things will change and we will have a totally new way of dealing with stuff?
So it depends on, I think, which of the use cases that I mentioned that we talk about. I think most of them are probably just incremental, but not little incremental. Like it's not groundbreaking, like, whoa, that's amazing, that's completely different, but it's also not just a little bit of an improvement. I think when we look at the rewards and loyalty programs and the way that that's going to bring value to brands, if we look at all the ways that it can change things around, like I mentioned ticketing, but we can talk about the music industry a little bit more specifically with some other stuff. When we talk about the art, art as an asset, when we talk about other assets like rum or whiskey or things like that, we can talk about wine and champagne. All startups that I know that are doing fascinating things, leveraging tokenization to be able to bring value to these assets in certain ways. The everything around supply chain and logistics, because of all the the Rolexes with 2 X's, that you can buy, the crappy watch, or worse, it looks like a real one, and it actually is really even well made. It's just not a real one. So how do we those things are probably not like groundbreaking, like, woo, wow, that's amazing, but not insignificant improvements either in terms of the tech that we're bringing. It's obviously not nearly as wow as seeing generative AI, typing in a prompt on Midjourney or DALL-E and or even ChatGPT just for text, and getting back this response that was created in real time based on your request. And the first time you play with Midjourney and make images and you give it a prompt, and you're like, some of it can look really terrible, but then when you start playing with it and you start asking better questions and you start refining what you're asking and you start to see it react, and that is mind-blowing in terms of where technology has been able to go. When you realize how, on a technological level, the resources that takes, the ability for these things to be able to, like whenever you ask ChatGPT questions and for it to answer you, and just to understand that it's basically just memorized the internet and is now answering your question because it remembers the internet and can answer your question. And it's this stuff, I think that has a bigger wow factor than some of this stuff. I think so maybe a lot of the Web3 stuff will be less wow, because the most amazing thing we're going to see with most of the Web3 stuff I just brought up to you is you're not even going to notice, you're not even going to know it's Web3.
It's perfect.
If you're using Lufthansa's digital collectibles, they're not NFTs. If you play with SoRare, which is the big sports digital collectibles platform for playing fantasy football and other sports, and having each of the digital cards, for your team, for your players and things like that, that doesn't even say NFT on the front page of the website. And so a lot of these technologies I mentioned, it's just going to be about the value that you're getting out of them without it being
Advertised.
so hopefully the technology will just disappear in the same way that you don't go, oh, it's really great. Last night I used HTTP to go to this HTML thing that was created by PHP and MySQL, and I was able to use a bunch of libraries that process credit card transactions over the Visa, MasterCard, or Swift, or just blah 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 blah. We don't talk about the technology we use. We just do the stuff. Web3 is going to be very similar in that way. We're going to just see that things work better or differently. And most people just won't know that that's because it's Web3. Here's a really fun anecdote that I'm stealing lots of things from my keynote, but there's still plenty in there.
No.
There's still plenty in there that you need to come and see. If a perfect one that's a great thing, it's not a wow factor, but it changes so much. When you go to LinkedIn and you look at people's education, if you go look for Harvard on LinkedIn, the screenshots that I have in my keynote say that there are over 750,000 people on LinkedIn that have a diploma, that are alumni of Harvard. If you ask Harvard how many diplomas they've given since 1600 and whatever it is, they've given 350,000 diplomas. And so we have this issue where, okay, that's a lot of people who don't actually have diplomas from Harvard. And so one of the issues is people may not realize is when you apply for a new job, they don't have the right to call up your university and ask if you went there unless you sign a release. It's nobody's business whether you went to a certain school or, and this may vary by country, but definitely in a lot of Western European countries that I know of, and definitely in the U.S., you call up Harvard and say, yeah, did Bob go there? They're going to be like, do you have a release? And so that means that most of the people who do a lot of this, they don't validate diplomas. Well, imagine that in a version of the future that's not so far away, when you go to LinkedIn and you log in with your email address, you could log in with your wallet. And inside that wallet is what's called a soul-bound NFT, meaning it's tied to that wallet. It can only be transferred by the issuer, not by you. So your MBA from Harvard is in your wallet as your diploma. And so the issue there is, LinkedIn can see, okay, there's an NFT that corresponds to this diploma from this school, and it's yours. So now it's going to say, do you want to show this on your profile? And when you say yes, it's going to say, Ethan has an MBA from Harvard. I do not. And it's going to have a little symbol next to it that says that's a verified real thing. We can do that with databases already, but it still requires intermediaries and networks and people selling stuff or whatever. I'm just talking about a digital asset that I got when I went there, that I got my paper degree, and I got another one sent to my digital wallet. And now anytime I collect to a website, it can see, look, there's the diploma. Stuff like that may not be wow, but it fixes huge problems.
So how long do we have until this is implemented, just for us to know to edit our LinkedIn profile?
Exactly.
Okay. So we have to write off MBA,
it's like
blah,
right now,
blah, blah.
right? It's
5 minutes, 10 minutes.
There's a whole bunch of people out there going, time to change my LinkedIn. Universities are already issuing NFTs with diplomas. When it comes around to places like LinkedIn or others integrating this, that will take whatever time it takes. Lots of continuing education or certificates or like programs where you like study something, you pay a website $200 to study it. They're already issuing NFTs as a way to say you studied marketing for product for PMMs and you got a certificate because you did 12 hours of class or whatever. That stuff's already being issued as NFTs. So it's already here. Mm-hmm. For the platforms to recognize it and use it, that's just something that takes time. But the value add is there because it's nobody has to ask permission of anything. You can just look at the wallet and say, you have the degree.
And what we're actually going to do at Prow is we had the discussion around what could we use from Web3 to actually try new things and learn if there's a value over there. And what we're actually gonna do is we're gonna play a little bit with POAPs.
Okay.
So we're gonna play with POAPs. We're gonna be sharing a digital proof of attendance for the first 50 participants that want that. So we're gonna try this out and see if it actually brings any kind of value. And it all started from a discussion within the local community with somebody, and he was sharing with me. He was scrolling down from 2017 or something like that, all the attendances at all the events that he did, and they issued this certification of the proof of attendance. And it was interesting because it somehow shows a track record of some sort, a validated track record that might also show something about that person, or might be relevant that that person was actually open to go and learn a lot of stuff from conferences.
Right.
That shows something about a person.
And how many people just buy tickets and then not show up? Also, a lot.
Yeah.
POAPs are interesting for that reason, and they also can be like digital collectibles. Like people can, like your friend will show you, like, look at all these things I did. So people can be really funny. Like conferences sometimes do things like where there's 4 or 5 POAPs and you have to find them because
Yeah.
the posters are in different rooms or hidden around an event venue or whatever. So people will collect them. So they have a digital collectible thing, which is really interesting for engagement around an event. But what's interesting is the problem. So the big issue for brands who want to start playing with Web3 is people need an NFT from your brand in order for you to start creating value for it. Well, if you just do something as simple as just, make their ticket an NFT or use POAPs or whatever, at least now you start to have NFTs out there that are yours, that are in people's wallets, which means that 2 years from now, because you can add the value in later, 2 years from now, you can decide, oh, if you have a POAP from Prow 23, you get 20% off your Prow 25 ticket. Or a brand could do that. Or you could say things like, you can connect to the website and you can get access to special content, or you can do all the different things that are around the utilities that I mentioned. You can bake those in later. Or even something as simple as you could log into Roblox or the sandbox or whatever in terms of the metaverse stuff, or even something like Fortnite, and because you have the POAP, your avatar can wear a lime green T-shirt with Prow written on it. Like, I mean, it's all that stuff can be done once people have the NFT in their wallet. So just doing POAPs is a great beginning because at least people start to have the thing. And you can create the values. You can make it all up later if it's built right in the beginning. It doesn't all have to be thought of beforehand. So it's really fun. It creates all kinds of opportunities. So that's great to just be trying. That's the big advice in my workshops. I do a lot of executive workshops for brands around this topic because they're all trying to figure it out. And what I tell them is just start creating NFTs so that people can have them, and then we'll be able to build even more cool new ways to interact with that over time. But if nobody has an NFT from your brand, you can't really do much with them.
So with that, we're gonna be ending on a high note. Thank you so much, Ethan, for joining us.
Yeah, it was fun.
Especially after a bunch of hours traveling all the way to Timișoara. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
3 planes, 2 cars, a boat, a donkey, and no.
Really? That so hard to come to
Actually, it was
Timișoara?
super easy. I had an easy flight to Bucharest, and then a little wait, and then an easy flight here. So and then you met me at the airport. So I can't complain. It was a long but good day.
It was the full service here.
Yeah.
It's fine. Thanks a lot. Thanks for everyone that is still with us. Thank you for watching on YouTube when you will watch that on YouTube. Hopefully before Friday.
Fingers crossed.
Right. We have here
Yeah,
our.
I want to see you on Friday at the keynote, and if you've got questions already or comments, Twitter or LinkedIn are great places to find me.
You will have
challenge me
for sure.
But I want to see you at the conference.
For sure. See you on Friday. See you tomorrow for the ones that are subscribed to and joined our workshops. So thanks again, Ethan. Thanks, Andre, for being here every step of the way in this journey. See you Friday, and have a great night, evening, whatever this will be.
I'm not sure if the people have seen it or not, but Daniel back here is juggling like 5 iPhones, 3 iPads, 2 laptops, and making all this magic happen. And he's just going all over the place. So
Right.
bravo for making all that work.
You're the first one that noticed that.
I always
Yes.
appreciate the tech guys because none of this works if they don't do it right. And this has been awesome. So,
Well, he might have just forgot to hit play, and we were just
exactly.
chit-chatting.
Exactly.
As long as he hit record,
Nobody is watching
we can
this.
upload. Nobody's watching.
Thank you so much, guys.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.